Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our SEAC meeting for Monday, June 15th. Thank you very much for joining us, everyone. So we'll be starting off this evening with our land acknowledgement of traditional territory, and tonight that will be read by Amanda Burton. So Amanda, you can go ahead whenever you're ready.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Simcoe County District School Board acknowledges that we are situated on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe people. The Anishinaabe include the Ojibwe, Ottawa, and Potawatomi nations, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect with all First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people.
Great, thank you very much, Amanda. All right, so next on our agenda, we have our SEAC statement of beliefs. So I will read that this evening. So based on our belief in respect, leadership, integrity, collaboration, compassion, student-driven services, and the right of all students to be included, we advocate that all students have equitable opportunities to learn and participate in inclusive school communities. They are supported in developing and maintaining relationships and participating in freely chosen activities and groups that results in a sense of belonging. Students' unique learning styles are recognized and planned for in a caring and sensitive manner, enabling them to learn and participate with dignity and respect. Students' strengths and special education needs are identified and responded to early, as this is paramount to their growth and development. Based on best practices and research, the SCDSB will adopt proactive, innovative practices to promote individual student capacities and gifts while addressing their special education needs. Education services are delivered using a collaborative and flexible process centered on the strengths and needs of the students, inclusive of family, school, and community, and based on the best learning outcomes for the student. The student's voice is key to all decisions made on behalf of and with the student. Okay, so next up we have the roll call, which I'm sure Lori can handle because I can't see anybody. All right. You have quorum. We do have quorum. Thank you very much. Okay, so next up we have the approval of the agenda, which I guess I will need Lori's help for this one too. So at this time I would be looking for a mover for the agenda as printed. I see Kevin beside me. Do I have a seconder for that?
Jody.
Trustee Lloyd. Thank you very much, Trustee Lloyd. All right, so any questions or comments on the agenda this evening? Not seeing any at this time. Again, if I happen to miss anyone, please just feel free to speak up, okay? Feel free to interrupt me and speak at any time, everyone, if I miss anyone, please. Okay, so I'll call the question. All those in favor of the approval of the minutes? And that carries?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, okay, that carries. All right, so next up, I would be looking for an approval of our minutes from our May meeting. Do I have a mover for that? Kevin, a seconder?
Andrea.
Andrea, thank you very much. Do we have any questions or comments on the minutes?
No.
Not seeing any? Okay, so I'll call a question. All those in favor?
There's 1, 2, 3 voting members with their cameras off.
All
So
right.
I cannot.
Our voting members with their cameras off, maybe if you could just put up your virtual hand for us. If you want to have your camera off, that's fine, but if you could just put up your virtual hand for the votes, that would make it easier on our end this evening.
Sarah, I'm gonna put up her hand. Okay, we are good.
Okay, perfect. So those are approved. Thank you very much. And do we have any declaration of conflict of interest this evening? Okay, not seeing any, thank you. Okay, so that takes us to 7 presentations and delegations. We'll start off with SEAC A7A, reducing communication barriers through use of core boards, June 2026 update. And we have Dr. Bronwyn Davis. Dr. Davis, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. I will share my screen. Okay. And so hopefully technology works smoothly for us now. So I'm pleased to provide an update on this project, which is an initiative of our speech and language team. In our board, our speech and language team has speech language pathologists and also speech language assistants. So why have they done this project at all? Many school boards have observed increases in the number of students who are entering school with really complex speech and language needs, especially entering into kindergarten. I put one example of a news report below, but we've seen similar reports in our board in Simcoe County, where there's a lot of needs through our entire system related to speech and language, and certainly an increase in the early years. And so the speech and language team has needed to reflect upon how can they best support the growing needs in our system. We know that students who are not able to communicate effectively are at risk for many challenges, including learning and behavioral and mental health challenges. And so in 2023-24 school year, the speech language team launched the Core Board project. The goal was to proactively embed core boards within kindergarten classrooms, but also within the wider school community. Partly, or one of their primary goals was to reduce the communication barriers that would be faced by students who have these communication needs, in particular students who perhaps are awaiting service. So if they were to have entered kindergarten with maybe minimally speaking, and some of them maybe have not accessed our preschool supports or early intervention supports, they then would need to wait to be seen by our speech language pathologist who may be able to provide service or refer to our community partners. So there can be a delay in being able to provide the needed communication support. So this would allow school teams to proactively have ways to support communication in advance, and then reduce communication barriers for these students by building learning across the school. We also know that these sorts of tools can actually help many of our learners. So it might not be, it might be maybe a multi-language learner who is learning some vocabulary, or any student. There's actually benefits to their vocabulary development and use of grammar. And overall, also a goal to promote inclusive practices within our schools in general. We know that if we're modeling from a young age, students are able to understand the importance of that kind of inclusive practice. It also could allow students to have more potential communication partners in the system. So it's not just relying on one, two, a couple adults in the building who know how to utilize maybe a visual communication tool, but maybe all of our learners and all of our adults in the buildings can understand how to utilize such tools. And then it allows some fostering of those peer relationships as well. So I'll give a brief overview of a core board. I myself, of course, am not a speech and language pathologist, so I've learned a great deal from our team. I put a picture of a core board on the screen. It's really a large page made of core vocabulary words and their visual representations. It's a type of low-tech or paper-based tool, an augmentative or alternative communication tool. So some of our learners will perhaps need to rely on a tool to supplement, which would be the augmentative, or replace, which is the alternative communication. And so this is one low-tech tool that can be an important part of a student's journey. There are many, many different types of tools, ranging from this sort of low-tech paper-based to much more complex high-tech devices. And there's also lots of different core boards. So if you were to Google core board, different kinds could come up for you. And you might see different ones around town at some of our parks, for example. This particular core board is utilized by the Simcoe County District School Board's speech language team because they know that it's also the one that our community partners are using. So the augmentative communication and consultation service through CTN utilizes this core board, and also our speech and language, our preschool speech and language program. So then we can have that continuity among services, which is really helpful for obviously students who are learning this and for their families. So we know that to learn language and like to learn spoken language, children do so through lots and lots and lots of modeling. We speak to babies from the time they're born and many times much earlier. And we do so all the time, even if we're not expecting students to understand, or sorry, babies to understand. And also when we don't expect them to talk, we still talk to them. So the graphic on the side shows that, by 18 months of age, when we're really expecting, a baby to not really have much spoken language, they would have typically experienced 4,380 hours of spoken language. And yet you can see that if we were to simply model a visual tool for our learners who require a visual communication, and we just did this, say, twice a week for 20 to 30 minutes, it would take them until they were 84 years old to have had that same amount of exposure as that 18-month-old baby to oral language. And so the reason our speech team really highlights this is that it emphasizes the need for us to recognize how important it is to model the visual language or the AAC device for our learners, and that it needs to happen as much as possible throughout the students' learning and day. So therefore, we need to help school teams know how to do this, because the challenge with a core board or any AAC tool is that it isn't sort of necessarily automatic for what to do with it. If you've made a environment more accessible for someone who's in a wheelchair, for example, by putting in a ramp, there's some understanding of what you need to do to use that ramp, that you don't have to necessarily train people, or not to a high degree. Even our low-tech devices like a core board can be overwhelming for adults who are supporting students learning, or for families. They can feel daunting, and understanding the amount of time it might take to have that patience before we see some response from students also requires a lot of support and understanding. And so therefore, teams really need to learn and be supported throughout that. So this is where this project really tried to make a shift. So speech language team has provided training to selected school teams. And here the focus had been primarily on kindergarten teams, where they would invite the whole team to participate in this learning. So that would mean the teacher in the classroom, the DC, and when there was an EA who would support that classroom from time to time, they would also come all to the same training so everyone could understand and hear the same message. When possible, they extended this training to others in the school as well. So often the CERT, of course, would attend other teachers who might want to share in this learning, other EAs who might sometimes come in and support, sometimes the librarians, sometimes even office staff. The team also provided printed resources to school teams so that that piece was taken away, that part wouldn't be a barrier for them for implementation. They would have some small core boards, they would have some large ones they could place up in the classroom. And then really importantly, they also then provided some in-class follow-up, and they've modeled and support that implementation after they provided that kind of pull-out PD. So for those of you who have been on SEAC for several years, you may have seen this video, or those of you who might follow the news reports that our board puts out, our communication teams. This was done a couple years ago, and it was, a quick 1 to 2 minute video around the implementation of this core board project in a kindergarten classroom. Today, I'm not going to show this one. If you haven't seen it, I do recommend that you find your way to it, and I can get the link sent to you if it wasn't somehow linked in the PDF that was sent to you today. But that highlighted what it looked like initially in the classroom and celebrated some of the success. And I will say at the time that year, the communications team shared with us that, in fact, it had been their most watched video of all of their news releases. for that year, which I thought was quite spectacular, and to me highlighted that this was something that our community was interested in, both our school community and our families of all of our learners. So we have carried on with this project. I don't want it to play without me there. Okay. And have done a subset of schools every year to build upon this knowledge. But one piece that the team recognized was important was helping school teams with this learning would be the voices from educators themselves. So as a speech language pathologist or speech language assistant, they often are in classrooms and they're supporting students, they're providing consultation, but of course they themselves are not in that room every day the way an educational assistant is, the way our DCEs are or our classroom teachers are. And they recognize how important those voices are when we're trying to help with new learning. And so they wanted to capture some of those educator voices. So the communications team came and helped create this second video. The bonus is that it could create a lovely update for you that we could share today and share this sort of celebration. But then also we could have this moving forward as we continue to build the learning in our school communities. So this particular video is actually going to highlight the use of a core board in a learning center classroom. So it's not a kindergarten classroom, but you'll see in the video that the school has also embedded it around the building in many ways. I love what is modeled by the classroom team here, which is really the recognition that this may be a tool that is essential for some of the learners in that room, but in fact has wide benefits for many of the learners, and in fact, maybe all of them. You'll have the chance to hear a few voices of some students who clearly have strong verbal skills, who still have positive things to say about the way that the core board is supporting their learning, because this teacher has embedded it within all of the activities they do. And I think that's a very key piece that our team wanted to help our new learning teams understand, in that we're trying not to ask teams to just do one more thing that's added to their day, but rather incorporate this tool within their existing classroom practices. So if I'm lucky, I'll press play and everyone will hear the video and see it. I think it might come a little quiet through, so you might want to raise your volume if you can, because I don't think I can on my end.
Welcome my class. I'm Carolyn Bryant. I'm a speech language pathologist with the Simcoe County District School Board. A core board is a visual communication tool that provides access to high frequency words. So we call these high frequency words core words because they make up the core words that we use in our daily communication. So core words are very flexible. They can be used in a variety of contexts, in different situations, and you can communicate various things using core boards. So for our non-speaking or minimally speaking students, when they point to a core word, it helps support their expressive communication. For our students that have severe articulation impairments, a lot of them have difficulty with clarification or their message being misunderstood. So when they point to core words, it can really help reduce a lot of those communication barriers that those students face. When staff or communication partners point to words when they're talking, so asking or saying, we're going to the library, that can really help our students who have difficulty with understanding language, who have difficulty processing language. It can also be very supportive of our students who are multilingual, especially with our use of our multilingual core boards, as we have our core boards in various languages as well. When we introduce the core board, we often see an increase in their use and their understanding of language. And with that, they participate more in class. They're more social with their peers. Their frustrations are reduced throughout their day as they can more accurately and appropriately communicate their wants and needs. And that also helps our students feel more regulated throughout their day as well.
I like to play tag.
I'm Lisa Gregson. I'm an educational assistant at Mundy's Bay. I've been using a core board for about 15 years. When it was initially introduced to me, it was very challenging. I was using it with one student. I had the whole flip and talk, so I had the core board and then the tabs on top. He was not interested in it at all, and I was trying very hard to make complete sentences with the core board, so I was hunting and pecking, trying to find the right pictures. I didn't feel we were really progressing very well with it. Subsequently, I worked with different people and they said to scale back a little bit. Just focus on one word. Don't worry about making whole sentences. And that became much easier. And now I'm working in a classroom where we integrate the core board into almost everything we do throughout the day.
I'm Sarah Jones and I'm a teacher here at Mundy's Bay Public School. I decided that we're going to introduce one core board word per week and introduce it to the whole class and use it in our literacy lesson. We're going to use it in our U-Fly lesson, and we're going to do it in math as well. The kids love the core board. We do some plays, and often we'll use the core board and play teacher where they're pointing at the words. The whole group has really embraced using the core board to make sentences. They can build a whole sentence about like who is going to the park, things like that. I've just taken my long-range plans, things I was already going to teach, and I'm just looking at the core board and seeing how can I work this into the lessons that I already have.
At the beginning of the school year, I had a new student join my class who was non-speaking, and
we've been modeling with her, and now she's starting to use it when she is requesting different things. So knowing where to go and where to be in our classroom. They have a core board that they use at home. That's been helpful as well. And I try to give the success that we're having at school and share that with the families.
Beginning of the year, we got to participate as a whole school in the core board project. We've been using the core board in my class for a couple of years, and there was interest from other teachers to see how they could incorporate it into their classroom. Our SLP came and did some sessions with teachers and educational assistants and office staff who are interested in learning more about it. Now we have a bunch of core boards throughout the entire school, which I find really helpful.
It helps me make my body calm. I like using the core board to spell sentences. I feel happy when I use the core board. The core board helps me learn more. The core board helps me talk with my friends. I really love the core board.
Since starting the core board accessibility project, we've heard from our community partners, especially the Children's Treatment Network, that when they are coming in to implement more high-tech speech-generating devices, much more robust, complex tools, that when they're coming into schools that have had the core board accessibility project, not only are their students that they're going to be working with more comfortable and knowledgeable with the core board and often already know how to navigate the core board, but also the openness of the staff to support that tool has really improved as well.
Oh. Okay. So, yeah, there's lots of things that we loved seeing in that video. And as was mentioned right at the very end, we have heard from our community partners from the ACCS team who have given us that feedback unsolicited, saying that they have found that this is actually helping once those learners with those complex needs are being seen by that team, that they can then facilitate implementation of those next steps of getting more complex high-tech tools in place for them with more ease and more success. So it's helping in that regard as well. So sort of the update as well today is around, at this point, the team has been able to provide this training to 53 of our elementary schools. Basically, the team is 9 speech language pathologists, so they every year work amongst their assignment of schools to explore where the needs are, connect with CERTs, connect with principals, and have selected schools based on those needs, and then have already started thinking about where the next school should be next year. There have been a few times where schools weren't selected and have reached out, and then we've been able to usually offer the training to them as well. The team has created various translations of core boards, which you would have heard mentioned on the video as well. And this is particularly helpful for our students who we might want to provide the tools that they could use at home, but particularly important if perhaps the family is speaking a different language at home, so that the modeling of that visual tool can happen in both environments. The speech language team continues to offer that modeling within classrooms and follow-up, providing ideas and example plans. So they have created a shared folder that has a wide number or large number of lesson plans. Like I've got one example on the side where here's an example core word of the week and how you could implement it at different times throughout your day. Their PD session that they provide that I described at the beginning, they also have made that a video that's available on our staff web, so that educators who may come into a team later could watch it on their own, or anyone could go back and refresh for that understanding. And then also providing other related in-person PD. So on two EAs on PD days, having a larger group of EAs come and support related PD around utilizing other visual communication tools. So in addition to the feedback we've received from some of our community partners, we've also heard some really great things from schools. These came directly from some of the principals in our system. I won't read them out loud to you today, but the first one was really highlighting that the feedback they got from staff was really positive. Some of the best PD, they were feeling excited, ready to implement the board. The second one here, I'll note, came directly to me and was also unsolicited, just wanting to give a shout out, recognized that there was impact to the learning, that they understood that this could be applied right away in their classrooms with their learners, and some excitement about the follow-up that the team was going to be providing. So they are planning to continue this project into next year because they see lots of benefits, and really it highlights some of the great work that the speech language team has shifted to do to try to meet our school team's needs and our students' needs, while also recognizing that there's other aspects of their job and wait lists that they're managing for other parts of their direct service. But that is what I wanted to highlight for everyone today, and I'm happy to take any questions if anybody has any.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Bronwyn. Does anyone have any questions? I do have a computer in front of me now, so I can see your lovely virtual hands. Thank you. All right, Amanda, please go ahead.
Oh, hi, sorry. So you spoke about the core board being used like in primary grades, kindergarten. Has the core board ever been considered for older high school students? I'm just wondering how it could be customized to reflect age-appropriate vocabulary, academic needs, social interactions, and increased independence in the high school students. Has that been considered?
Yeah, so absolutely. Our speech language team is actively involved in supporting many of our secondary students who would have communication needs. So often that might mean that they are implementing something like a core board. It might mean that they're coming in and supporting a related device that the student come secondary has been perhaps prescribed and trained on, and maybe supporting the school team and learning how to utilize it. The team often focuses on that these core words allow for a certain amount of or a quite substantial amount of vocabulary and use, and then from there they can, as was shown in the video, access these more kind of maybe higher tech device that maybe started from that same core visual in a sense. The actual visual depictions themselves, the team usually, and I say it's the team because I emphasize this part is not really my specialty or my expertise, but emphasize that the icons themselves are not as important as learning where they are on a page, the motor movement that's connected to them, and then what that then can, if you get, say, that next device, open up for like further communication. So the images may sort of stay the same, but they can individualize to make work for where that student is at. So for many, it's actually a much more masked core board. So they're going to figure out what that student's, current needs are and start with that if the full board is too overwhelming. But it is utilized in our high schools, particularly in our classrooms. E6 and E8 classrooms, E10 classrooms.
Very good.
No, not E, secondary, S in those classrooms. So
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Amanda, did you have a follow-up?
No, that's great. But I did have one other question. Is there training for the parents on this as well? Like you mentioned a lot of training for the EAs and the staff. I was just wondering about the parents as well.
yeah, so that's an interesting question. Through this piece, I'm not sure how much as part of this direct project the parent would be getting. Certainly when the school team would have parents in around, have a strengths and needs committee meeting, they would have the opportunity to share the tool and describe to the family in that regard. When a student is picked up for further service from our speech language team or service from one of our community partners, absolutely there is more in-depth support and training. But some of these moments of, say, even capturing the video that I didn't show today, but that previous one allows for some of that really early level training. Maybe we'll say that introduction to see what it is, why it's important that school teams can easily share with parents. If there was a parent who was seeking more support, I would encourage the school teams to reach out to the speech language team, and they would help navigate how to do that.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Sarah, please go ahead.
Thank you. Not a question, more of a comment and a little bit more information. So first off, thank you very much for the presentation, Bronwyn. It's really nice hearing the amount of engagement and support and positive energy that's happening within the school board around this. So my role, I work in the early intervention system. And I know, like, within your presentation, you acknowledge the streamline with preschool AAC teams, aligning with other services that occur in schools. I just wanted to highlight for the group as well that another space of very big success is aligning with other early intervention systems and programs and even childcares, like our resource consultant program, as well as preschool speech and language. We're embedding core boards and other visuals into a licensed childcare setting, as well as like our OAP entry to school program. We have core boards everywhere. And the really key piece for what that does that I think is so important for this table to know is that it aligns to a very predictable environment, and the capacity building within the school board that this project is doing is really making those transitions into kindergarten or grade 1 that much easier because they're already familiar with the core board. It isn't a new device. It isn't as daunting. They're familiar and it's already there. So it's really aligning that transition very, very smoothly. I would say in the last 2 years, I'm seeing and hearing about a lot more ease of those pieces around embedding core boards into activities because that knowledge is really getting out there. So kudos to the team, and highlight that other alignment in what it does for our early learners who are transitioning to school. So thank you. And I look forward to hearing how the next few years continue to go.
That's great. Thank you very much for that feedback, Sarah. That's really important to hear. I appreciate that. Any other questions or comments from the group? Kevin, please go ahead.
Little fuzzy on. Are these core boards standardized? Sorry, back to the microphone. Are these scoreboards standardized across all 53 classrooms? And if so, how are they maintained as the students progress with their usage?
So I want to make sure I heard you correctly. So how are they standardized across classrooms? And the second part was how are they maintained?
Yes, how do they grow? Because of course, start with the board, they need to have vocabulary as the children become more efficient. It's a very difficult time to.
So yes, I'll try my best to answer this. So yes, I think the main goal is that the basic core board is standardized, right? So that means they might have small printouts that can be on children's desks, carried in hands. You will see on some of the videos, a lot of our EAs and our speech language team will have even smaller ones attached to their lanyards. So they're always with them when they go inside, outside. Some schools will have them pasted on windows so that when they're on the yard, you can access them that way. Or they're in the flip and talks, which you would have seen on the video where it was sort of that binder that also had the additional fringe vocabulary at the top added. There are times where the team might need to suggest some modifications, which tend to be, my understanding is masking some of the vocabulary when needed to help, learners maybe focus in on some key pieces if the tool is maybe starting off with too much. But the goal is that you mask that existing core board so that the motor learning remains the same. So that if you know that to ask for help, it's on the right-hand side, that is always going to be the place that you press to ask for help, for example, or point to. Over time, though, as our students grow, perhaps with their ability to use and need more complex vocabulary, that's when we would be having other supports come into place. So, or they may have been waiting through a period of time on a wait list, for example, to access our community through CTN's augmentative communication consultation service, for example. And then from there, they can utilize what's been put in place and perhaps prescribe a tool that can provide that even more complexity in their maybe vocabulary and what they can produce. So on the video, that's where you saw a piece where it was our speech language pathologist modeled what a student could do, which was, click onto one part on that initial core board. It's going to show a new screen that opens more information that then they can combine together to produce a much more complex pieces of communication. The goal is so that students can really build and communicate in all the ways that we all want to see all of us communicate. So not just to make a simple comment or a request, but to engage socially, to share their thoughts, their feelings, their likes. So it's the complexity, I think, and the change that would happen over time would be done through that more further consultation with our speech language team or through our community partners.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions or comments from the group? Okay, I'm not seeing any at this time. Thank you so much, Dr. Davis. I just wanted to say that I really appreciated a few things from your presentation. The fact that it was one of our most watched videos through communication, I feel like that says something, right? That people are seeking this out, that it's speaking to people. And so clearly it's a project that really connects with people. So that was really interesting to hear. I like to hear how the EA said that she struggled with it at first. She clearly didn't really love it, but then it grew on her, and she was able to really work with it. And I really loved the way the one student said, "Makes my body calm." Like the fact that he's making those connections, he's making his body calm, that was a really big one for me that stuck out. So I really appreciated your presentation. Thank you very much. I've seen the core boards myself in lots of classrooms on my visits, and definitely I've seen with on the lanyards, everything. And so it's they're really wonderful to see. And then around the community too, which I think that connection is great. So thank you very much for your update, and we look forward to seeing how this works out in the rest of our schools as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, and then I really have to apologize, everyone, I kind of fumbled the beginning of our meeting there, I didn't give our regrets, I kind of skipped over the roll call with some important parts there, so my apologies. So first off, we do have regrets this evening from Shira Perry, Catherine Horling, and Annette Kroll, and then we do have a very important guest that Superintendent Jacobs was going to introduce, so please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And yes, I'd like to reintroduce Tina Holwood as one of our principals of special education. Tina was a consultant with the central team a few years back, maybe 10 years back. Tina has done a lot with special education in her schools in Admiral Collingwood, county class ASD there. She opened the new Wasaga Beach Public School and opened a county class E10 there. And I'm glad to have her back to support the team, to support her system.
Thank
Welcome
you.
back.
Thank you. It's good to see that. I didn't want to put you on the hot seat, Tina, if you have anything you wanted to say, or?
No, not really, just, yeah, it's nice to be back, so thank you for the warm welcome.
Great. Awesome, we look forward to seeing more of you in the new school year. Thank you. Okay, all right, so next up on our agenda, so attached to your package, there was a written delegation from the Association of For Bright Children of Ontario, re-gifted congregated classes. So it was a written delegation that was attached to your package there. I'm not sure if anyone had any questions or comments there. Okay, not seeing any. All right, so moving along in our agenda, so we had B, items for decision, we have nothing. So that takes us to C, items for information. So we have no follow-up from previous meeting. That takes us to staff reports. So SEAC C2A, agenda item request with Principal Maxwell. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
So just to kind of help keep us organized for next year, attached you will see any requests for presentations, reports, or topics. So a form we've used traditionally in the past. So any information that SEAC is looking for to collect, you can do this form and send it to Lori by July 3rd to help plan for next year.
Great, thank you very much. So we'll start up the new school year and we'll have September, October, November, December with our current SEAC. And then we would have a new SEAC after that. So hopefully any requests we get, we can squeeze it in the beginning. Yeah. Okay, did anyone have anything they wanted to share right now? Any specific requests or anything like that? Okay, not seeing any at this time. Okay, you can send that along to Lori if you have anything. Thank you. Okay, all right, so then next up would be B, SEAC C2B, SEAC of annual evaluation with Principal Francis. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much. Through you, Chair, to the committee. We are looking at an evaluation which can be submitted by all voting and non-voting SEAC members. At that point, we will, really welcome that feedback and analyze that to consider our next steps for next year. And really, this is a stop, start, continue activity. So what's presently done that maybe we should consider discontinuing because it was not helpful or useful. What should be started because it's needed and would be helpful or useful, and what should be continued because it's really it really is deemed worthwhile. So this is again an evaluation that will go out to members, and we would just welcome your feedback and really appreciate that in terms of our next steps. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. So we do have the form there. I know we've had kind of a discussion at the table sometimes when we've had this come forward. We don't have an overly heavy agenda, so is there anything that anyone wanted to bring up now? Or everyone's just looking at the sunshine thinking, no, hurry up. Especially Kristen, with your background, I keep looking at the sunshine and the waves behind you.
Yeah, it's hard to keep the sun out of my eyes. I apologize. I feel like I'm distracting when I'm moving around.
Well,
I'm not complaining though.
I could see that the sun was very much on you, and then plus with your background, you're just making me want to be outside sitting in the sun for sure. Kevin.
I will make one comment as to what we should start again possibly. And we're has to do with the next things that are coming up, which is some other significant administrative procedure memorandums. We used to have subcommittees set up. Or something like this could be brought to the subcommittee for those that are interested, could put their input in before it actually makes it to the table. So we can express things in a less formalized format, rather than having our ideas jumped on a public forum, but it doesn't always necessarily the most constructive way of doing it. A little more difficult since we don't get together physically anymore, but it's something we might have to think about how to reestablish.
And we could definitely do that with Zoom meetings as well. We could have some subcommittee meetings on Teams or Zooms as well. Okay. Thank you very much, Kevin. Okay, I'm not seeing anything else at this time, so we'll move on in the agenda. But as always, if something comes to you, please feel free to speak up. Okay, so then we have no committee reports this evening, so that would take us to SEAC member updates. So does anyone have any association updates to share with us this evening? Any upcoming events or anything like that? This one's always a slow start and I get ready to move on and then I see hands. All right. Not seeing any at this time. Okay, if anything does come up, or if you have anything, please feel free to send it on to Lori as always, and she will send it on to the committee too. Okay, so then that would take us to board member updates. I try to alternate. I feel like last time I came to Trustee Lloyd first, so Trustee Strong, I'll come to you first. Do you have an update for us for board?
Hey everyone. I guess from the board, probably the piece of information that is most relevant to this committee is that at our last board meeting, we did pass our budget. I know we've talked about the budget around this table before, so we passed a balanced and compliant budget. We, and Trustee Rafiq might want to speak actually a little bit more to this, but we did make many requests during the budget deliberations, including the submission from SEAC to add further consideration for special education. I do believe that we are spending outside or over and above the envelope. That said, I know, at least for myself, Trustee Rafiq and Trustee Lloyd, we always advocate and think that there could be more money spent on special education, but we are continuing to advocate for that again with the province. And I might just turn it to Trustee Lloyd to see if she has any updates that she'd like to share that come from our table and as well from our Ontario Association.
Thank you. And I think we're the first board in the province to balance our budget and pass it for this year. So, you know, I think it's a testament to the hard work that's done by our staff on an ongoing basis to try and adjust and align with the funding that we get. Not saying it's sufficient funding. It is not. We all know that. But despite our efforts, we haven't been able to sort of move the needle with this minister with respect to spec ed funding. You know, just a couple of things from my perspective that this committee, you know, should be aware of and relevant is that the minister is looking at special education. The minister has made comments publicly, so I'm not saying anything that's not out in the public forum, but that in his world, inclusion is not working. So we as a board of trustees are, you know, the minister has dropped a couple of regulations, I believe one yesterday and one at the end of last week with respect to Bill 101 and some of the changes that are coming. I think this is the tip of the iceberg. We will be waiting from now until the fall to see what is dropped and what changes over the summer. But special education is something that the minister has indicated that he is, I think his words were he's going to tackle. And, you know, we anticipate there could be pending changes, but we certainly have not seen any increased funding to date. And as you all aware, in the last meeting, I did mention that the Auditor General would be releasing her report, which she did, which was highly critical of this government's ability to support special education students. And so I think that is also something that moving forward, we're going to be, you know, seeing if there is any response provided by the ministry with respect to the findings of the Auditor General. They certainly have, at this point, I think, had very little to no response to that report, which is a bit disappointing. So those are some things on the agenda, but that to keep an eye out for the future. But as a board, we've been able to tackle and balance our budget, and the wait was more of a wait and see game between now and the fall.
Great, thank you both very much. And yes, I would echo comments from both my trustee colleagues that special education is something we all continue to advocate for all the time. I've had the chance to be with a couple of our MPPs recently, and I told both of them, I said at the beginning of my term, whenever I spoke to an MPP, that all I would talk about was I would advocate for capital funding within our board, because we were in such desperate need for capital funding. Now, every time I talk to an MPP, I talk about special education, and that's what I spoke to Minister Calandra about when I had the chance to see him on a tour as well, because it is absolutely our biggest pressure. And as one of my trustee colleagues mentioned, that we are spending outside the envelope, which I know makes some people very happy. Happy and not happy, right? I think we were one of the last boards to do that, which obviously we don't want to have to do that. Special education is education for all. So all dollars benefit all children. I think we all agree on that. But it would be much better if special education was properly funded within the province of Ontario. That would make things even better for all students. So it is definitely something that we will continue to advocate for. The minister's words that I have heard him say very publicly, that inclusion is not working, those are scary words to hear. I don't really know what that means. We work very hard on inclusion here at the SCDSB, and we feel it's very important. So it will be interesting to see what that means going forward. But I think we all need to keep listening to find out what that means for sure. Okay, but yes, as Trustee Lloyd mentioned, we were the first board in Ontario to pass a balanced budget. So that was a pretty big deal. We were pretty excited about that. Okay, all right. So next up is the much better news. We have good news. We have our golden buzzer return. So we have Principal Francis and Principal Maxwell.
So I was going to start off with just highlighting the Life Skills Prom. If you have never had a chance to go and see the Life Skills Prom, it's probably one of the happiest days in school. So we had about 300 students come to Barrie North, and it's always a fantastic event to see all the students who come dressed to the nines. The Cosmo hair and makeup class helps support the students to try and get some to get their hair done. Well, I was able to see many students from lots of schools that I've been at, seeing the Eastview crew from last year, just super excited, dancing, sweating quite a bit as they're on the floor, having a great time. But it was really a positive event, and really does go to show the students who were part of the leadership class, who helped facilitate all of that night or that day, did a fantastic job, and really just seeing the celebration and everybody come together in that building.
Wonderful. Good. All right. Yes, it's always, any videos that I've seen of the day have been amazing. And one year I was in a school doing a visit the day that the prom was happening, and the Cosmo department that I was at was getting a lot of students ready, and that was pretty exciting to see for sure. It was a lot of fun. A lot of smiles. Sure. Good, thank you. All right. Okay, so we did have some correspondence attached to our package there as well. So there was a letter from the Blue Water District School Board regarding the letter of funding support for students with special education and mental health needs. There was another letter from the Upper Grand District School Board creating a letter of funding support for students with special education and mental health needs. So this is clearly something that is on the minds of all of our boards and all of our SEACs. Okay, so that takes us to other matters, which may take us a bit longer than usual, other matters this evening. So we do have the consultation there of the new APM Administrative Procedures Memorandum for modified day, and also for student exclusions. Superintendent Jacobs?
Thank you. And through the chair of the table. A modified day is a temporary change to a student's school schedule when their disability related mental health or medical needs make it difficult for them to manage a full school day. It's meant to support the student, not punish them. It is only used when all other strategies and accommodations have already been tried. The goal is always to help the student return to full day attendance as soon as they are ready. The Simcoe County District School Board is committed to creating safe, inclusive, and equitable learning environments. Sometimes, despite strong supports, a student may still struggle with the length or demands of a full day. In this case, or in these cases, a modified day can be one part of a larger plan to help a student succeed. Before modified day is considered, the school team reviews everything in place for the student. This includes classroom strategies, sensory supports, behavior plans, and any accommodations in the student's individual education plan. The school must have clear evidence that these supports were tried and monitored. This process reflects the board's responsibility to accommodate students under the Ontario Human Rights Code, which protects students with disabilities and requires schools to remove barriers to learning. If the school believes a modified day may help, the principal will invite the family to a meeting with the collaborative planning team. This team may include teachers, the special education resource teachers, central board staff, and other professionals who support the student. Together, the team reviews the student's needs, looks at data and observations, and talks about what has been working and what hasn't. Families are encouraged to share their insights, concerns, and hopes for their child. If everyone agrees that a modified day is appropriate, the school creates a modified day plan within 5 school days. This plan includes the reason for the change, the start and end dates, the student's daily schedule, the sports that they will receive, safety considerations, and how the school and the family will communicate. Parents or guardians must give their consent before the plan begins. Once the plan is in place, the school team continues to support the student and monitor their progress. Meetings are held every 2 to 4 weeks to review how things are going, adjust, and plan for next steps. The team works together to help the student gradually increase their time at school, and when the student is ready to return to full day attendance, the plan is updated and placed in the student's Ontario student record. So a modified day may be used in situations such as a student who's overwhelmed by the length of the school day, even with accommodations, a student who attends medical or therapeutic appointments during school hours, a student returning after a long absence, student experiencing significant mental health or emotional regulation challenges. There are also important safeguards to protect students. A modified day must be temporary, reviewed regularly, and then clearly documented. It cannot replace needed supports or staffing. Transportation is not provided for modified schedules, and attendance is recorded using specific ministry codes. The focus is always on helping the student build the skills and confidence needed for full day participation. For families, the most important message is that a modified day is a collaborative, supportive, and time-limited plan designed to help their child succeed. Parents and guardians are essential partners in the process, and their voice matters at every step. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from the group? Kevin, go ahead.
First of all, I congratulate the administration for attempting to tackle this rather thorny issue of modified days and solutions. It sounds all very good. I imagine this G code is something that we can actually track and figure out what's going on. But in my experience, this isn't how it works when the rubber meets the road. Modified days start when the school cannot accommodate the child for the full 5 hours that is supposed to be in for the day. It is rarely the case where it's a child just needs to be built up to it. It's more school can't handle it. So they scale it back until we train the school to accommodate. So it seems to be a bit of a reverse on how it's been put in place here. I will reserve the rest of my comments because it joins up with the exclusions. Because to me, it is an exclusion. It is what most of the people in Ontario refer to as a soft exclusion. There is not really parent choice in the matter. In the instances that I've been involved in, admittedly, I get dragged in when things are blown up. But they are enforced, and they're enforced as an exclusion. It's called, if he doesn't do it this way, he doesn't come in at all. And that's an exclusion. I will let you go on to the next one, and then I will address my comments to the two combined. But once again, I congratulate administration for attempting to tackle this. Because no board in the province has. And it's a start.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna jump in with a question that I have because I do feel it kind of connects to what Kevin was saying. So my question was kind of what triggers the modified day? Because I would agree with Kevin in my experience that I, as a trustee, have gotten calls over the years, which I have spoken to you about Superintendent Jacobs, which was the beginning of this process, that I get calls when the parent is repeatedly being asked to pick up their students. So there is no modified day in place, and they're contacting me because their job is at risk, or they have no way to pick up their children, they're really struggling, they feel like their children have not completed even a week of school, and they're usually very upset by the time they come to me or by the time they reach out to someone like Kevin. So my question would be connected in that I've seen this as well, because I have seen that we do have some students, maybe they start kindergarten, they're really struggling, or whatever grade, maybe they're really struggling with anxiety, and there is a way to kind of roll them in slowly. I have seen it happen that way as well, but I have also had a lot of the other side, where people are calling, they feel they're already on a modified day, but they're not. So my question would be, what would trigger this? What kind of, when I'm looking at, for example, section 4, so the procedural steps, so identification of needs, where the school family or school team or family identifies potential barriers related to the student's ability to successfully participate in a full school day. So where does that happen? Where does that start, I guess, is what I'm thinking. Does the parent have to receive 5 phone calls that they pick up their school to pick up their child from school? Do they get 1 phone call and then this procedure starts? I guess that's my question. What would kind of start things there?
Through the chair, to the chair. We're hoping that this will provide the structure. We didn't quantify, number of phone calls, but ongoing communication, I think, is essential between the school administration, the CERT, the regular classroom teacher, and the parent very much so is supposed to be a part of this process. And that's how we can differentiate the APM around modified day. And then we'll talk about the exclusion APM, where it also talks about modified day in there as well. But it's supposed to be collaborative. We're supposed to determine what strategies can be put into place. And on the other side, sometimes parents come to us with also wanting to modify the day. So, but this is to formalize it, to make the system more accountable for modified days. There is a form also that principals, once there's an agreement, that we can now track all of the requests for a modified day, but it's the ongoing communication that has to occur. That's kind of the point of this and structuring it that way.
And I appreciate that, but I'm gonna follow up for today. So if I'm a principal in a school and I have a student who I'm struggling with, the staff is struggling, and I've called the parents to pick them up because we just can't handle through the day. How many times does something like that happen before we start on the modified day route?
So again, there's no, through the chair, there's no actual number. I think again, if the principal or the CERT or the regular classroom teacher feels we need to bring in central staff to support this further, then they would work through that process. But again, the parent is supposed to be part of this process. They're supposed to be in agreement in this particular APM for a modified day. And if they're not in agreement, then we would not initiate a modified day.
Okay. Okay, I will stop there for now then. Does anyone have any questions or feedback? Kristen, please go ahead.
I might be just leading into the next conversation, but I just wanted to then clarify if there's not agreement, if the school thinks that it should be a modified day and family's not in agreement, is that when it then moves on to the next piece that we're going to talk about? Is that what the process is?
Through the chair, Kristen, so possibly, yes.
Okay.
And
I'm not like automatic by any means.
But I'm gonna wait until the second one is presented. Or because they are things.
They are definitely linked.
And we did discuss while these were being produced, at first, I think they started as one.
Correct, and then, I'm sorry, through the chair to
Please
the
go ahead.
chair. Working through this process, reaching out to colleagues in the other parts of the province. Yes, there's no clear modified day, and working through the process, it wasn't clear cut. Where we thought we could first do it in one, we had to separate it because they are distinctly different under the Act as well. So that's why you'll see modified day in this APM modified day, but you'll also see it referenced in the exclusion, where the parent may not be involved in that decision.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm gonna come to, sorry, I just wanted to acknowledge here, I do see your hand up there, and I'm gonna come to you next, and then Andrea as well, but please feel free to go ahead.
Thank you, through your chair to the committee. Really, when we think about this, we want to acknowledge, both the request from SEAC, but also our very real desire for the information to track this information. And to have something that is transparent and that we are accountable for, and so that we understand, how many students this is impacting. Knowing that, as Superintendent Jacobs mentioned, there are families who reach out and want to initiate this process. We want this to be a time-limited plan where there are supports in place that we can access for that. So that's really the intention around this, to be able to, monitor, track, and share that information transparently.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, sorry, Shira, please go ahead.
Okay, hi. Just really quickly, I had two questions. One is kind of also a little bit of a statement. So I often find that our ADHD population ends up, the caregivers end up being called quite often for, quote unquote, behavior challenges and for students to be picked up. I'm just curious too, because, this tends to, continue to stigmatize ADHD students in regards to behavior, that classification of behavior like it's a choice. I'm just wondering if, schools or staff members are going to be getting any training on ADHD and what it really is, what it looks like, how sensory and environment impacts to support the learners so that they're not asked to be altering their days. And then I was also just wondering if we do have any stats on who's, based on diagnosis or IPRC, who's being asked to have their days altered. Do we have any stats on what that looks like? Thank you.
Okay. I did see both.
Sorry. So yeah, through the chair to share. So right now we don't really have statistics. This process is going to hold the system more accountable. The form that was created is going to allow us to track it, because it's always concerning when Trustee Rafik or Trustee Lloyd or someone brings to my attention that they've heard of a modified day, but we know nothing about it. So this will definitely hold the system more accountable for that. We are doing a lot more professional development this year, so that's why I'm grateful that we've added a third principal of special education, so we can focus more on professional development that we're rolling out. Specific to ADHD, not at this time. However, when we pull in the central team into schools as well, where our behavior coaches, a lot of the time they're working with students with ADHD, and we're kind of doing in-house professional development on what strategies can be put into place for that student that just can't sit still or is impulsive and so on. So we do have two behavior coaches, but a number of our facilitators and consultants are familiar with students with ADHD, and then they can hopefully then build the capacity of the teachers, who could be new as well, with their understanding and capacity for accommodating students with ADHD. I don't know what you want to add. Okay.
Sure. So through you, chair to the committee too, just around that request around how are we supporting, staff with professional development so that they can support students. It certainly is, so ADHD and executive functioning is one of the areas where we would like to be able to share some professional development with our school administrators, as well as with school teams. And so that we are currently in that process of looking at, when in the school year can that be, shared with principals and vice principals in order to then be able to share that with school teams? So as well as what Superintendent Jacobs speaks to in the support for in-school teams with our central team, behavior coaches, and so on and so forth, going into buildings to support, we look to have some more formal information around how to support students with that ADHD diagnosis that's shared next year as well.
Okay, that's wonderful to hear. Shira, thank you. I appreciate your question, Shira. As a mom of 3 ADHDers, I feel you on that one, and so I really appreciate that question. I've definitely had a lot of struggles over the years. Our teachers have told me that my kids just need to learn to focus better when I have a diagnosis right in front of them. So it's really horrible to hear, and it's even worse for my children and all the other children that are experiencing that to hear. And so that's great. Any more sharing and knowledge we can do on that one, it's always appreciated. Okay, Andrea, thank you for your patience. You're up.
Oh, I'm happy to be patient. It's good practice. The question, I have a question, comment, like a curiosity. So you talk about transportation not being something that's provided. We're talking about learners, students who are complex. We're modifying their day, likely because of some complexities. And then we don't have a way to support them coming and going to school on that modified day. Is there any conversation, creative ideas that any of your coterminous boards or other school boards are using to support this? Because I think it's such a challenge. I know I have a lot of, I hang out in circles of folks who sometimes need a modified day for lots of really rational, good reasons, but getting individuals to and from school during that middle of the day can be significantly impactful to families that are already very vulnerable. And so if there's no transportation, that's such a challenge. I just wasn't sure if there was any creative thoughts or discussion around that.
Good question. Thank you. Thank you, President Jacobs.
So through the chair to Andrea, so we're always we're mindful of costs, mindful of transportation. That's sometimes the biggest barrier for a parent agreeing to a modified day is because they don't have transportation to pick up their child midday. So then in that case, we wouldn't be able to carry out that plan in this situation. So, but we're always thinking of those things. And the thing is, we don't have all the answers as well. Anyone in SEAC or our community partners as well, if they have suggestions or they know that's working in other parts of the province in terms of handling that situation, but currently we do not provide midday transportation.
Trustee Lloyd, did I see your hand go up in response to that?
Yes, thank you. And just in response to Andrew, I sit on the Simcoe County Student Transportation Board of Directors, and actually we had a meeting last Thursday. And it has been one of our pressure points for a very long time with inadequate funding. And at this point in time, we have a substantial deficit forecasted for next year. So we're really not in a position where we can sort of increase services as much as we may like to. Right now we've tasked the Transportation Consortium with looking at efficiencies and trying ways to save further funds for next year, because it's a substantial deficit. Like, we're not talking a few $100,000, we're talking several $1 million in shortfalls there. So we always take that into account when we're looking at things and what we'd like to do and add. And, it's truly unfortunate. And it's not a problem isolated to Simcoe County. It's a problem across the province where the funding is just not sufficient to meet the needs of the students that we have and what we would really like to do versus what we can do. So just thought I'd, bring some context to you for that, that we have challenges.
Thank you, Trustee Lloyd. I feel that I need to mention that Trustee Lloyd, Trustee Strawn, and myself have all sat on the Transportation Board. Only one trustee sits on it at a time, but all three of us have taken a turn there, and it is a very eye-opening experience. Transportation is extremely underfunded, which I knew as a trustee before, but then you really see the nitty-gritty of it on that committee, and it's terrifying, really. We have had to take money out of reserves before to be able to even fund transportation within our board. So it's again, something that we continue to advocate to the ministry for. There was a couple of years ago, I know the ministry made some changes with transportation and vans were no longer funded, and that was extremely impactful for the SCDSB. Because, you know, if we were to be able to offer transportation for a modified day, we would obviously not want to do that with a giant yellow bus. We need to have other options available as well. So through advocacy around the province, that was changed and our vans are funded again. So things like that, we can't necessarily, sometimes we don't always end up with the amount of money we need to make the differences, but having those options available are there. And then, you know, if we are ever in a position where we have the money, that we do have less expensive options where we can hopefully support families where we can, right? So, but again, I feel like it's the answer we give all the time, but a lot of it comes down to money, and it is something we continue to advocate for more of all the time. Okay, so you're good, Andrea, no follow-up there?
I guess, sorry, I guess just
Yeah,
my sort of add to that is then if then the response to not being able to support a modified day is the exclusion, that's so challenging, right? Moving on to that next page. So, and I understand the funding and the cutbacks, and it's just, yeah, I'll keep my ears open to see if there's any creative ideas that I come across elsewhere. So it's just so tough, right? Tough times for sure.
Thank you. Yes, always, as Superintendent Jacob said, let's, you know, share best practices from everywhere, for sure. Okay, Sarah, please go ahead.
Thank you. So I definitely echo Andrea's last comment there, where it is difficult times. Definitely see and understand that. And from the discussion this evening, I gather that this is the first time something like this has been put into place. You've put it into writing. So kudos to Superintendent Jacobs and the team that's put all the work and effort into this. When I read through it, the one thing that kind of stood out for me, or that I'm curious about, is like, when reading through it, it almost feels as though there's an implication that the student is already on a full day, and then we're looking at modification afterwards. So my point of feedback would be to take that reflection back and think about maybe articulating for those individuals where sometimes the recommendation from the board is to start on a modified day, or a student who may not be entering school with a full day to start and we're modifying afterwards. Sometimes it's that planning beforehand. Again, as you guys have heard from me, from the lens of the early intervention system, where we're transitioning those kids into school for the first time, sometimes some of the first points of discussion are around how are we going to start on a modified day, or how are we going to start on a shortened day. So I definitely appreciate and respect the intention of this, your vision, Superintendent Jacobs, for trying to establish some consistency and some clarity on those practices and the procedures around it. I think it's wonderful. And I'm also hopeful that the board will be able to get there. And I just wonder if that's kind of a pocket of learners and scenarios that could also be highlighted or included here in a different way. Because a lot of the families or caregivers that my teams directly work with, or that I'm directly communicating with, like, we're doing those first transitions in, and there is some frustration whenever that modified day is the first point of discussion. So just wanted to share that with you guys at that stage of the game, of those learners that are first coming in, to see how that could maybe be incorporated with what you have drafted here.
Yeah, and I do want to say it's this committee, and trustee Rafiq and Kevin, and the conversations that we had, that we felt that was needed, right? And again, those informal modified days that were happening, we found that we needed to create the structure so that we can track it and kind of formalize the process. But thank you for your feedback, though, as well, because you're right, some families or group homes and so on, they don't want a full day to begin with. They want to see if they can start even sometimes a period in secondary, or and then try to build up from that point, right? Because we do want all students to be successful. And it might not mean starting off full days right off the bat, because the research or the data shows that they're exhausted by the time this afternoon. And why would we subject them to going beyond their point of comfort, you know? So, but thank you for that. But I can't take all the credit. I've had a lot of conversation with many of you, so, and my colleagues.
You might be saying we're pushy, Kevin, I'm not sure.
In a nice way.
Sarah, please go ahead.
No, I was just going to add into that, like some of the themes that I'm hearing and experiencing within the community, as well as, you know, the knowledge of the cuts for support services within the system is getting out there more broadly within our community. So, you know, that paired with like discussions of modified day, like there's a bit of, like, for lack of a better word, it's almost like there's fear of what is that experience going to look like for my child. And I'm noticing those patterns more in the last few years than I have in my, I'm just going to say, many years of experience in the system. I don't want to age myself. I see Andrea nodding there as well. So my sense is that we're not the only teams of service providers that are hearing those components. So I'm not sharing this to be like, my intention of sharing it is so we can kind of be ears to the ground in a way for you guys as well, to share what we're hearing from some of the caregivers and families before they're entering the system, the school system, and some of those pieces that they're sharing, they're concerned about and fearful of.
Thank you very much, Sarah. And I can tell from the faces around the room that the team is appreciative and very respectful of your feedback. And so thank you so much for sharing. Okay. Not seeing any other hands at this time. So we'll continue the discussion, I'm sure, as we move on to student exclusion. Sorry, so yes, the new APM 8545 student exclusions. Superintendent Jacobs?
Okay, so again, our board is committed to creating safe, inclusive, and equitable learning environments for every student. This document, this APM, reminds us that principals can refuse to admit a student only when they believe the student's presence is detrimental to the safety or well-being of students, and only after the school has tried everything possible to support the student. It also says that the exclusion should be used as a last resort when the Simcoe County District School Board cannot accommodate the student's attendance without undue hardship. For families, that means exclusion is not meant to be a punishment. It is meant to be a temporary safety measure used only when all other supports have been exhausted. One of the most important ideas in the procedure is that when a student's behavior is connected to a disability, the school must look at it through an accommodation lens, not a disciplinary one. Students with disabilities deserve understanding, support, and dignity. Before a principal can even consider exclusion, there is a long list of steps the school must take. They must consult with the superintendent, with the family, with the student when appropriate. They must review and update the student's support plans, things like the IEP, the behavior support plan, or the safety plan. They must look at all available supports, including educational assistants, behavior teams, mental health staff, and even community clinicians. They must also consider changes to the learning environment, such as quieter spaces, predictable routines, or reduced transitions. They must consider whether a modified day could help keep everyone safe before moving to an exclusion. All these steps are meant to ensure that exclusion is truly the last option. If an exclusion does happen, the school still has important responsibilities. The principal must explain the decision to the family right away, both verbally and in writing. The written notice must include the reason for the exclusion, what conditions need to be met for the student to return, how those conditions will be evaluated, what learning supports will be provided during the exclusion, and the family's right to appeal that exclusion. The procedure also makes it clear that exclusion does not take away a student's right to an education. The APM states that the student must have a detailed learning plan that ensures continuity of instruction and assessment. The school must stay in regular contact with the family every 5 to 7 days and work toward bringing the student back as soon as it is safe to do so. Before the student returns, the principal must create a structured re-entry plan. This plan outlines what supports will be in place, who is responsible for what, and how the student will be supported during the transition back to school. The goal is to make the return safe, predictable, and successful. Families also play an important role. The procedures ask parents to share relevant information, participate in planning, and support the learning plan during the exclusion. Students, when appropriate, are invited to share their needs and goals and take part in planning their own return. This is meant to ensure that decisions are made with families, not simply handed to them. The superintendent has oversight responsibilities as well. They must ensure that exclusions are used fairly and consistently, and they must monitor data to make sure that students with disabilities, racialized students, Indigenous students, or other marginalized groups are not disproportionately affected. This is an important safeguard for equity and accountability. So families do have the right to appeal an exclusion. This right comes from the Education Act, and the details are outlined in the board's appeal procedure.
Thank you very much. Questions, comments? Kevin, go ahead.
Once again, it's a rubber banding the road issue. Most of the time, you don't have the time to do all the groundwork before moving the child from school. When a child is active, when a student is acting up to the point where you have work refuses, when somebody is injured, and there are going to be unacceptable explosions of profanity, homophobia, racist comments, etc. They cannot be tolerated in the school. But it also isn't a discipline issue. And that's where the majority of these things they exist in that environment. The students that you're going to have to exclude are usually get involved in a very serious incident. And there's nothing in this memorandum that allows you to deal with that. So what's going to happen is the principal has to do something, and they're going to suspend them. And then all of a sudden, it's discipline. The EPM will never be used because it doesn't deal with point zero. Right? When do we decide that the student has to be removed from the school? It's a serious step, and we never do it when there's time to plan. We do it when there's a disaster happening. The difference between being able to exclude someone immediately and start immediately on the process of reintegration and suspending them is that suspending them has its own set of regulations which are based on progressive discipline. And this has nothing to do with progressive discipline. And every one of the students that would fall under this category will go through suspension before this ever kicks in. So we're already started the punishment, or we started dealing with the issue. From a parent's perspective, they always come up, he has no control, she has no control. And they're acting as if it's their fault. They're blaming him. If we stop being afraid of using the term exclusion for excluding kids, we can maybe change the culture of how we actually deal with them once they are excluded. Because right now it's a behavior problem, it's a discipline issue. Right, and if you start off that way, then the student starts to believe that they're doing something wrong, right? That they're being punished. And the parents feel that they're being punished. And the staff feel that the kids are being punished. And all of a sudden, it's no longer the ability, it's punishment, it's progressive discipline. And the whole thing falls apart. So, yes, I love the tone of this document, but it will never be used in a school the way it's written. I have suggested numerous times over the years you don't approach other school boards who have never been able to tackle this issue and never even want to look at it. And once again, I applaud you for trying, because it's really hard. Take these documents, send it down to work disability law and say, what are your thoughts on this? You want to set up a standard is the gold standard for the province to follow. Right? The other bonus is, if they can send back the information, if you adopt it, when they complain about it, they say, well, it's your right things. Okay. That's just a suggestion, gets it outside information, find some way to stop the suspensions. Because that's when the whole system will fall apart every single time. My last comment is undue hardship. I think it's ironic, once I thought I saw a choice here made in the 2000s. I'm not sure that should ever be inside one of our APMs. That term. Our board has used the term undue hardship rather creatively over the years. I remember over a decade ago, there was a human rights case where they argued undue hardship. Undue hardship, I believe, is 52 cents a day. Right? Because there is no definition of undue hardship. And people will interpret it any way they want. And if this is being interpreted at the school level, they will decide what costs too much. They will decide what undue hardship is. And it's not. It's a principle enshrined in law. Okay? Which your average principal, your average administrator, your average teacher will never understand. Start comprehensive.
Brendan Jacob?
No, thank you for that. Undue hardship is another word that people shy away from for sure. Undue hardship, that's through the chair, to the committee. It can never be based on monetary purposes. Under Ontario Occupational Health and Safety, there's a threshold for undue hardship. Is it written in stone? No, there's subjectivity to it as well. Again, this is to get a procedure in place, hold people accountable. Before we go to this, there's a lot of people involved in it. And again, it's the last resort. We should have done all these different things first. And the superintendent's involved in for the area, and it also comes to the special education, or it comes to us usually first, and then well, it could go to the superintendent education for the area as well. But we kind of work through that process. But we do whatever we can with the resources that we have to accommodate wherever possible, and then. Again, we're getting a tracking method in place. You know, maybe had a few, but just single digits. And again, we try to work with the families. We work with community agencies. We work with medical practitioners, just sharing resources to see what we can do to get the child back into our school. But it is a process, and you're right. Like usually several suspensions have occurred well in advance of us ever getting to this point.
And my argument is that if you weren't so afraid of the term exclusion, you wouldn't be suspending them in the first place. You'd be excluding them. Right? And that's why the definition needs to be worked on. It needs to be brought back a step further because that's the reality. Right? We don't exclude people after 5 tries because they've already been excluded. We just call this something else. And because we call this something else, the records show that Simcoe County School Board did not exclude any student in 2023. Why was I in so many meetings? Right? We really had to do something about the suspensions and change them to exclusions and follow a system designed for exclusion, not a suspension.
Thank you, through you, Chair of the committee. I really appreciate your passion for this, and you're holding us accountable and asking those questions. And I think what I hear from you, Kevin, and please correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but what I hear is really looking for clarity and looking for communication in all of this. And I think what I can share around that is that Principal Maxwell and I have presented to principals and VPs this year, around that idea of undue hardship and our legal obligations and our human rights obligations in terms of students with special education needs. Because, what we recognize is there needs to be clarity on that and consistency in our board. So some of that has happened already this past year as far as professional development. There is more planned for next year as well, because, you know, as well as, you know, this APM, there has to be, you know, communication and consistency in terms of how it's applied. So I hope that some of those professional development things that have happened or that have been planned, you know, also support that work so that there is that clarity.
It's really not my point. Point is, we start the whole process on the wrong foot to begin with. And our EPM should put us starting on the right foot. Right? If we're using suspensions, people will treat it as a suspension. People will think of it as a suspension, and they will treat the student as if they are a discipline issue. And they're not a discipline issue. So we have to start from the first second. As you realize, it's unsafe to have that child in the school, or it's unacceptable to have the child in the school. And it's treated immediately as an accommodation for a disability issue, not a progressive discipline issue. And until we do that, then all of this really isn't worth anything, because none of that will ever kick in when it's supposed to. And the entire attitude towards our students will be one of discipline versus treatment, management, education, support.
One of the things made me think of when Kevin was talking was a lot of our APMs are linked, right? Like you look at one APM, there's a whole bunch of other ones linked there. Would that be a plan with this? We talked about that there's a lot of steps that should be happening before we reach these stages. So there's probably lots of other APMs that would be connected to those before steps. So would it be appropriate to have these linked in there so that people would know that, you know, these are the next steps type of a thing? Is that something you've looked at yet? Other APMs and policies to connect them to? I see lots of note taking, so I'm gonna guess no, but maybe yes.
So right now at the top, it links to the policy, or actually the repeal human rights code, but yes, that's something that we could take away, is connecting it to some other policies around equity and exclusion. And again, this is a starting point. We have to get the foundation in there so that we can kind of suspension separated from this, and we didn't have that before. So this is to hopefully work towards separating those two. But we can definitely take those take away the connected to other APMs, that things that should happen first before.
Yeah, knowing what's coming and knowing, you know, what's next, I feel like could be very helpful. And, you know, if I was a principal looking at something I was doing now and saw that link and then read that, and, you know, it all comes together and maybe, you know, I feel like it would be a good connection there. Okay, any other comments or questions from the committee? All right, Kristen, please go ahead.
I took a long time to figure out how to get my hand up. And I guess this goes back to my original thought and links to what you just said with regards to communication, because I think when we talk about a modified day and it being a family agreed upon conclusion, I see a lot of families, because of the challenges that we've already talked about, transportation, employment, saying, no, thank you, like this doesn't work for my family. And not that you would ever threaten that this is the next step that we could go, but I think families do need to know what the course of action could potentially be. Always knowing that everybody's goal is to keep the kid in school. Like that is our first and foremost. If they can be in school and they can be safe, then let's do that. But I do want to just ensure that that sort of communication is there, because you may find that families would be more apt to be able to figure out how to accommodate a modified day if the next step would mean no school at all, complete exclusion. So having those somehow paired might be helpful.
Thank you for that, Kristen. Very insightful for sure. Excellent. All right. Thank you. I appreciate the feedback from the committee and the great discussions that we've had. As Superintendent Jacobs alluded to, I may have been a little pushy on this issue this year in the background. And so I very much appreciate this hard work. And it is, as Kevin said, it's hard. It's, you know, it's never going to come out to make everybody happy. You know, as much consultation as we can have, and no one's ever going to be all happy about an APM or a policy, I feel like, right? So I think it's great starting points and hopefully we can work and continue to grow as we do with everything. But over that into the future. Okay. Okay, all right, so I'm not seeing any more. No, hands, sorry, saw Kevin hand go up. Okay, not seeing any more hands at this time for this discussion. So sorry, do we have any other matters? That was under other matters. Do we have any questions or comments of anything that haven't come up so far?
Yes.
Okay, Kevin, go ahead.
Let's tell me that I didn't see. The final of the special education plan was sent out to us. It's not on the agenda at all. When I was going over it the other day, something struck me that I didn't get in on that on the deadline for the amendments. In regards to the gifted program. It says we are offering it in the document, but we're not really offering it as an option anymore. We offered it as an option and we're now fading it out because no new students are going into it. So that should probably be reflected in the plan, if not, I mean, don't get into it this year, it's already finalized. But it's something to consider, you might want to take that off. Because if any parent looks at it and says, oh, there's a gifted program in elementary school. When there actually is not.
I believe it is stated in there that it starts at grade 5. But it doesn't specifically say that grade 5 is being phased out, like next year it will be only grade 6. Does it specifically say that in there? I did read it several times, but because it just says that it starts at grade 5, right?
And the reality is none of these students are going to be placed there.
Right. Sorry.
So if there are students in grades 5, 6, 7, or 8, then we can still offer placements for students.
On the later stages.
Yes, but I think to Kevin's point, a parent looking at that doesn't know anything about the phase out. They might look at it who has a child in grade 3 and think, oh, when my child hits grade 5, that's what they'll be.
That's interesting.
Right, so I do think wording in there that the phase out is coming would be important, so people would understand. They wouldn't see that if they just read that, right? That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I do have a note here that it's going to board on Wednesday, and we do have our package already, but I'm sure it's not an item that gets passed by board. It is, it's an item for information for board. So it's not something that trustees pass, the special education plan. It's something that we have an opportunity for feedback on, just as this committee does. So there is an opportunity to make changes, so. Okay, all right, any other matters? All right, not seeing any at this time. Thank you very much, everyone. All right, do we have any notes of motion for next meeting? Not seeing any. Thank you very much. All right, so at this time, I would be looking for a motion to adjourn. Kevin, seconded by Kristen. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much. All right, everyone. So we don't have a meeting for August or July or August. Our next meeting will be on September the 14th. So I hope everyone has a wonderful couple of months. Enjoy the sunshine. I don't know, most of us still work full time, but at least we can hopefully relax a little bit and enjoy some sunshine here and there. Refill our vitamin D. All right, good night, everyone. See you in September. Thank you so much.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.